Intimacy of touch with moon in Cancer. When you crave to be held like home, but fear your skin might reveal too much. For the moon in Cancer, touch is not a luxury. It is language. A language older than words, deeper than reason. You don't just want to be held. You want to be felt through. You want someone's arms around you to say, "You are safe here." You want a hand on your back to speak the sentence you're too emotional to say aloud. But with all that yearning comes a paradox. Your skin is a doorway and a shield, because to be touched is to be known. And moon in Cancer, for all its tenderness, holds its inner world like a fragile heirloom, meant to be cherished but rarely opened. You long for closeness that dissolves the space between bodies, the kind of touch that says, "I see your ache and I'm not going anywhere." But you don't just give that access, you circle it. You watch for safety, consistency, tone. You want to be embraced, but only when your emotional tide says now. And if someone reaches too quickly, too roughly, too casually, you recoil. Not physically, but energetically. Your moon folds in, because intimacy through touch isn't about sensation for you, it's about feeling met. At first, you might lean into nurturing gestures. You'll fix their collar, massage their shoulders, brush their hair back when they're tired. These touches say, "I care," but they also shield you. Because when you're the giver of comfort, you don't have to reveal your own need. You can stay in control. You can love without being seen. It's only when someone tries to offer that same touch to you without agenda that your moon starts to tremble. There is a softness inside you that has been hurt before, a place that remembers the absence of tenderness just as clearly as the presence of it. So even in loving relationships, you may flinch when touch arrives without warning. Your partner might mean warmth, but you hear history. They hold you, and you feel everything, not just love, but grief, memory, the ache of every moment you went untouched when you needed it most. And so sometimes you pull away, not from them, but from the wave inside you that feels too big to hold. Your emotional body is tidal. It rises with connection and crashes with abandonment, even imagined. So touch that doesn't follow through, affection that appears but isn't sustained, wounds you in ways others may never see. You need continuity in physical intimacy, not grand gestures, but steady ones, not intensity, but presence. A hand that stays, a shoulder that returns, a body that remembers your rhythm and respects it. To deepen into this intimacy, you must begin to trust your own longing. Stop masking your need with self-sufficiency. Stop waiting for them to read your mind. Say, "Can you hold me tonight?" Say, "I don't want anything fixed. I just want you near." These are not weaknesses, they are sacred requests. Your moon doesn't need fireworks, it needs belonging. And that starts with letting yourself be gathered. You must also practice staying present when you're being touched, especially when the emotions it stirs feel overwhelming. Let the tears come, let the silence stretch. Let your body respond without having to explain. Touch doesn't always require words. Sometimes it is the answer. And when you allow it, when you stop guarding your sensitivity as if it's a flaw, you find that the very thing you feared would drown you heals you. Because for Cancer moon, touch is not physical. It is emotional contact made visible. It is memory. It is safety. It is the body saying, "I'm not leaving, not this time." And when your partner learns to hold you with that kind of awareness, not just with arms, but with heart, you soften. You breathe differently. You begin to believe that home is not just a place you create for others. It's something you are worthy of receiving too. In a touch, in a moment, in the quiet miracle of being held and letting it matter. Intimacy of receiving with moon in Cancer. When you know how to hold others, but struggle to be held without earning it. With the moon in Cancer, receiving love can feel like standing in a storm with no umbrella. Not because love is harsh, but because it touches you everywhere at once. You feel the intention behind every gift, the unspoken emotion in every gesture, the tenderness laced in every word. You notice, you absorb, but when it's you on the receiving end, not as the caregiver, not as the safe place, but as the one who is being cared for, you hesitate. Because being held, truly held, requires surrender. And your moon has spent a lifetime equating love with responsibility. You're quick to deflect kindness. When someone brings you something, you offer something back. When someone compliments you, You brush it off with a smile and shift the conversation. You rarely sit in the center of someone's care without finding a way to earn it. You tell yourself it's humility, but deep down it's fear. Fear that if you receive too much, you'll become dependent. And if you become dependent, you might be left. Cancer Moon thrives on emotional security. And for you, giving love is a form of control. When you are the one doing the nurturing, you feel needed, you feel indispensable. But when someone gives to you, without you asking, without a crisis, without needing anything in return, you may not know how to stay open. The love feels too exposed, too tender, too vulnerable. And so instead of softening into it, you brace. There's also the weight of past disappointment. You remember the times you reached for care and were met with absence, the times you asked quietly and weren't heard, the times you didn't ask and waited anyway, only to feel forgotten. So even now, when someone does show up, part of you flinches. Because your moon doesn't trust easily. Not because it's cold, but because it remembers everything. But real intimacy, true receiving, means trusting again. Letting the walls down, not because someone asked, but because you're ready. Letting someone bring you tea and not apologizing for needing it. Letting someone rub your back without planning how to return the favor. Letting someone say, you don't have to do anything right now, and actually believing them. To open this door, begin gently. Let yourself be seen tired. Let yourself cry without cleaning it up with words. Let someone sit beside you in your mess without narrating why it's okay. Practice saying, that helps, thank you, without rushing to reciprocate. You're not selfish, you're human, and you deserve to be poured into without having to shrink first. You must also stop believing that receiving love makes you fragile. It doesn't. It makes you real. It roots you in emotional belonging. And when you allow yourself to be tended to, not just in times of need, but in daily softness, you stop feeling like love is something you must constantly prove. You start to realize love can arrive too. It doesn't always have to be built. And in those moments, when you allow someone's care to land, when you let affection rest on your skin instead of sliding off, you begin to heal. You begin to trust that your worth isn't in how well you hold everyone else. It's in how deeply you're willing to be held. You stop translating love into obligation. You start living it as nourishment. Because your Cancer Moon was never meant to be the only one offering the shelter. You are the home. But even homes need to be warmed, lit, repaired, kissed with light. Let yourself be kept. Let yourself be gathered. Let someone else be the one who says, I've got you now. And let that be enough. Because you're not just meant to love like the ocean, you're meant to be loved like the tide coming home. Repeatedly, silently, without having to ask. Intimacy of kindness with Moon in Cancer, when you give it so naturally but forget to ask it back. For the Moon in Cancer, kindness is instinct. It flows through you like breath. You feel someone's hurt before they speak. You anticipate their needs before they're aware of them. You show up with soup before they admit they're sick. You hold space for others, not just because you care, but because you can't not. Your emotional body is wired to nurture. But the intimacy of kindness isn't just about giving. It's about being willing to receive it, to ask for it, and to name your own need. And that's where your moon sometimes folds in on itself. You are the safe harbor, the one others turn to. Your love language is quiet presence, gentle reminders, small reminders wrapped in warmth, and you expect, often unconsciously, that others will notice what you need in return, that they'll mirror your care, your sensitivity, your emotional tracking. But when they don't, you rarely speak up. You harden slightly instead. Your kindness doesn't vanish, but it becomes tinged with hurt. Because you still offer warmth, but now you're watching closely. Do they see me the way I see them? You're not someone who likes confrontation. When your needs go unmet, you don't yell, you pull back. You create more space around yourself, hoping someone will notice the shift and lean in. When they don't, the silence confirms a fear your moon already carried. If I don't give, I am forgotten. And so you give more, but not from overflow, from anxiety, from the hope that if you stay sweet, stay soft, stay giving, someone will eventually ask, and how are you? But that's not kindness. That's a quiet form of self-erasure. An intimacy of kindness asks you to interrupt that pattern. It asks you to say, I need gentleness too. It asks you to believe that your needs are not burdens, that your feelings aren't excessive, that your softness doesn't have to be earned through being the caregiver in every room you enter. There is a part of you that longs to be handled the way you handle others, to be held with preemptive care, to be soothed before you collapse. But your fear is that if you stop being strong, you'll be alone, that your softness is only safe when it's given, not shown. And so you protect it. You become the loving one, the giving one, the one who always understands. And beneath that, your inner child quietly waits, hoping someone will notice her hands are empty. To practice this kind of intimacy, you must learn to ask for small things. Not because you're testing someone's love, but because you are worth being cared for. Say, "Can you sit with me while I fall asleep?" Say, "I know you're busy, but I'd love to be checked on more." Say, "That tone felt sharp to me." Not because you're fragile, but because you are deeply attuned. And when that attunement isn't met with kindness, it wounds you more than most. And you must give kindness to yourself in the quiet aftermath of disappointment. You often carry the emotions others don't want to feel. Their shame, their guilt, their silence. You explain away their harshness because you understand their pain. But your understanding should not come at the cost of your peace. Let your kindness begin at home, with you, with your own heart, with the space to say, "I'm not okay and I don't have to be." When this intimacy is honored, your relationships transform. Your love stops being one-sided. Your kindness becomes mutual nourishment, not silent service. And your moon begins to heal, not through isolation, but through reciprocity, through a new truth. I am not just someone who gives love. I am someone who gets to be loved back, fully, freely, kindly. Intimacy of growth with Moon in Cancer. When you want to evolve together, but fear what growth might take away. With the Moon in Cancer, you dream of shared evolution, of slowly building a life, a home, a future together. Growth to you is deeply emotional. You nurture it like a garden, carefully, consistently, protectively. But when that growth begins to ask for change, that disrupts the emotional safety you've worked so hard to build, when it means letting go of old dynamics, roles, or closeness, you may quietly resist. Because for your moon, love must feel like belonging. And anything that threatens that belonging, even in the name of progress, feels like a loss. You don't fear growth in theory. In fact, you need it to feel alive. You want your partner to become their best self. You encourage their healing, celebrate their achievements, cry tears of pride when they evolve. But the moment that growth begins to take them further away, emotionally, spiritually, or even physically, you feel a familiar ache rise up. It whispers, "Will I still fit in their world when they become who they're meant to be? Will they still choose me from this new place?" Cancer Moon builds security through emotional continuity. You need to feel needed, not out of control, but as proof that your presence matters. So when someone grows more independent, more self-assured, or starts changing in ways you didn't anticipate, you might unconsciously try to anchor them back. You may become more giving, more available, more emotionally tuned in, hoping your love will tether them to the familiar. But sometimes, what they need isn't a tether. It's a witness. Someone who doesn't hold them back, but walks beside them, even as the road begins to curve. This conflict can also surface in your own journey. When you begin to grow, when you want something new, or need more space, or feel emotions shifting, you may feel guilt. Because part of you believes, if I change, I'll break what I've built. If I move, I'll leave someone behind. So you hesitate. You make yourself smaller. You postpone your needs. Not because you lack courage, but because you are loyal to the past. And the intimacy of growth asks something terrifying of your Cancer Moon. Be loyal to who you are becoming too. You tend to wrap your identity around the emotional containers you've created. The home you've nurtured, the relationship you've protected, the patterns that feel safe. But emotional safety is not the same as emotional stagnation. Love cannot grow inside a bubble of nostalgia. It must breathe. It must risk. And so must you. To embody this intimacy, you must begin practicing emotional detachment, not as disconnection, but as trust. Trust that your bond doesn't have to look the same to remain real. Trust that if someone you love is changing, it doesn't mean they're leaving. Trust that the new version of you is not a threat to the love you've known, but an invitation to deepen it. Tell your partner, I'm scared things are shifting, but I want to meet you where you're going. Tell yourself, I can want more and still be rooted in love. Let tears come when they must. Let grief be part of growth, because your moon doesn't fear change, it fears emotional abandonment. And growth doesn't have to mean letting go of each other. It can mean holding each other differently. And when you do, when you stop trying to freeze love in its safest version, you find something miraculous. Your capacity for connection expands. You stop clinging. You start belonging to yourself. And suddenly, change no longer feels like exile. It feels like becoming, together, apart, evolving, returning. A rhythm that Cancer Moon knows better than anyone, like the tides, like home, always in motion, always waiting, always able to hold more. Intimacy of activity with Moon in Cancer. When you want to do things together, but really you just want to feel safe inside it. For the Moon in Cancer, activity is not about productivity. It's about presence. You don't care what the two of you are doing, so long as you feel emotionally close while doing it. Whether it's folding laundry, driving in silence, cooking dinner side by side, or watching a familiar show for the third time, shared activity is your emotional tether. But what you're really after isn't stimulation. It's security. You want to feel that someone is with you through the ordinary, that their body is near, their heart available, their spirit not drifting elsewhere. You attach meaning to these shared rhythms. A walk after dinner isn't just exercise. It's your time to connect. Grocery shopping together isn't just convenient. It's an unspoken ritual of partnership. When those rituals change or disappear, you feel it more deeply than you show. You might not even know how to say, I miss the little ways we move together. But inside, it's as if your nervous system is asking, are we okay? Are we still in sync? Your Cancer Moon builds connection through repetition. It loves the emotional predictability of shared routines. But it also grows fragile when those routines start to feel hollow. When your partner shows up physically, but not emotionally. When the shared activity still happens, but the closeness doesn't. You go through the motions together, but their tone is distant, their gaze distracted, and that absence, the emotional absence inside the physical togetherness, hurts more than being apart. You might respond to this with silence, with doing more, with initiating another plan, hoping the next thing will bring back the closeness. But what you really need is not a new activity. It's attunement. You need to know they're with you, not just physically present, but emotionally present. That the shared task isn't just being checked off, but shared truly. That their body isn't just beside you, it's connected to you in spirit. Sometimes you use shared activity to avoid harder emotional truths. If there's tension, you might suggest doing something together instead of talking it through. You create warmth through motion, comfort through familiarity. But intimacy of activity also asks you to pause and ask, is this still togetherness? Or are we using this rhythm to hide from something deeper? Because your Cancer Moon doesn't just crave company. It craves emotional safety. And that requires honesty, not just habit. You're also prone to overextending yourself in these shared activities. You want to be helpful, nurturing, available. You'll take on more than your share just to keep the togetherness alive. But if you do too much without reciprocation, without feeling emotionally met, you begin to burn out. Not with fire, but with quiet resentment. You'll keep showing up, keep making the plans, but you'll start to feel like you're doing it alone. And nothing is more painful to Cancer Moon than feeling unseen in your loyalty. To deepen this intimacy, you must allow yourself to express the emotional why behind the activity. Tell them, I love cooking together because it makes me feel close. I miss our slow mornings. I don't care what we do. I just want to feel you here. Let the routines be sacred but not silent. Let them know that these moments aren't just habits to you, they're how you bond. And when they understand that, they're more likely to bring presence, not just participation. And you must also let yourself receive shared activity as care. If your partner invites you into something, even if it's not your usual ritual, consider that it might be their way of saying, come close to me here. Let go of needing every moment to look a certain way. Let activity become a bridge, not a test. Because sometimes the way someone loves you is in the walk you didn't ask for, the game you don't fully understand, the offer to be near, even if it's in their language instead of yours. Because when this intimacy is honored, you feel not just included, but known. The ordinary becomes sacred, the small becomes soothing, and you realize the activity was never about what you were doing. It was about being remembered through it, being chosen again and again, even when nothing special is happening. And to your Cancer moon, that's the deepest intimacy of all, the feeling that togetherness doesn't need a reason. It only needs to feel like home. Intimacy of allowance with moon in Cancer. When you want others to be themselves, as long as they don't drift too far. With the moon in Cancer, love is protection. You feel closest to those you can shelter, comfort, and keep close. You offer emotional sanctuary. You say, "Come as you are, I'll make room for it." But deep down, allowance, true, unconditional allowance, can feel like a risk, because while you want those you love to grow, to shift, to be free, you also want to know where they are. You want to feel close. And sometimes change, especially when it doesn't include you, feels a lot like abandonment. You hold on, not with control, but with care. You sense when someone is distant before they've said a word. You notice when their emotional rhythms start to shift. And you ask, "Are you okay?" Not just because you care, but because you're trying to reestablish emotional closeness. For your Cancer moon, the moment someone begins to evolve beyond the old patterns, roles, or familiar ways of relating, your instincts sound an alarm. Is this growth? Or are they moving away from me? You say you support their journey, and you mean it. You want the people you love to become more of themselves. But you secretly hope that in their becoming, they won't let go of the parts that made you feel safe. You want them to stay emotionally accessible, predictable, the same kind of close. But real growth doesn't always preserve old dynamics. Sometimes it redefines them. And your Cancer moon, rooted in emotional memory, struggles to let go of what once made love feel like home. This becomes especially challenging when someone's growth means pulling back, needing space, needing quiet, wanting to explore parts of themselves they've never shared. You might interpret this as rejection, even if they've done nothing wrong, because your moon reads distance as disconnection. And your instinct isn't to clamp down, it's to give more, to become more emotionally available, more comforting, more involved. But sometimes the kindest thing you can do is to step back, not as withdrawal, but as trust. Allowance means letting the people you love feel everything, even what makes you uncomfortable. It means holding space for their anger, their confusion, their silence, without absorbing it or trying to soothe it away. Your nurturing nature wants to fix. But the deepest intimacy lies in witnessing without managing. Saying, "I see you becoming someone new, and I'm staying with you," without trying to make you softer for me. You must also turn this kindness inward. You often don't allow yourself the same emotional range you offer others. You feel selfish when you need too much. You feel guilty when your emotions disrupt peace. But true allowance begins with letting yourself be who you are, moody, soft, sometimes overly attached, sometimes overwhelmed. Let yourself shift without apology. Let your emotions move through like tides, not something to suppress, but something to honor. The work here is trust. Trust that the bonds you've built are strong enough to stretch. Trust that love doesn't disappear when it becomes unfamiliar. Trust that someone can change and still choose you, that you can change and still be loved. You don't have to preserve the emotional home you've always known. You can renovate it. Let the new shape hold more light, more air, more truth. To grow in this intimacy, tell your partner, "I want you to be all of yourself, even the parts I'm still learning to understand." And tell yourself, "My closeness is not a cage. My care is not a condition." Let your love be a room with open windows. Let it breathe. Let it change shape with the seasons. Because when you practice true allowance, your love deepens, not because you hold on tighter, but because you open wider. And your Cancer moon learns that home is not where someone stays the same. It's where someone knows they can return, no matter how much they've grown. Intimacy of giving with moon in Cancer. When you pour love into everyone else, but forget you were meant to be filled too. With the moon in Cancer, giving is your native language. You don't think about it, you feel it. You cook when someone's quiet. You check in when their voice changes. You sense what's needed long before anyone says a word. Your giving is intuitive, emotional, and deeply maternal, regardless of gender. It says, you don't have to ask. I'm already here. But intimacy of giving asks for something more than intuition. It asks for balance, for boundaries, for the courage to give without depleting. And this is where your moon often forgets to protect you. You give with the hope that others will recognize your care, that they'll mirror it back, that they'll offer the same softness without being prompted. But when they don't, when your love is accepted but not returned, you don't confront. You just keep giving. Because that's how you feel safe. If you can stay useful, stay nurturing, stay emotionally indispensable, then surely they won't leave. But over time, that kind of giving becomes less about connection and more about survival. This leads to a subtle form of self-erasure. You stop expressing your own needs. You downplay your exhaustion. You say, it's fine, I've got it, even when your hands are shaking. You convince yourself that being tired is a small price for being needed. But this isn't sustainable. Your giving begins to sour, not because your heart isn't full, but because your reserves are empty. You start to resent the very people you've cared for, and then you feel guilty for the resentment. You rarely ask directly for what you need. You hope others will notice. You drop hints, move more slowly, sigh a little louder. You want them to say, let me do that for you. But when they don't, you feel invisible. Your moon, which once gave so freely, begins to ache. You feel forgotten, even though you're the one who taught them not to worry about you. And this is the heartbreak. You gave so much care that they assumed you didn't need any. To heal this, you must remember, giving is only intimate when it's chosen, not compulsive. It must come from fullness, not fear, from a place of emotional yes, not emotional obligation. You are not responsible for holding everyone together. You are not failing if you need to receive. You are not less lovable when your hands are open instead of offering. Start small. Let someone help you carry something. Let them bring you food without offering to cook next time. Let a hug last longer than you're comfortable with. Say, that was really kind. Thank you, I needed that. Let yourself be seen as someone who deserves care, not just someone who gives it. You also need to give without expectation. Sometimes, your emotional generosity is laced with quiet hope, that they'll stay, that they'll change, that they'll finally recognize how deep your love goes. But this turns your giving into a test. And when the outcome doesn't match your hope, the wound deepens. True giving, real intimacy of giving, means offering love because it feels right, not because it will secure affection in return. And when you do give from that clear place, when your heart is full, your energy restored, your choice respected, your love becomes healing, your presence becomes transformative, because your Cancer moon doesn't just nurture people, it anchors them. It teaches them that care can be quiet, steady, sacred, and mutual. So let yourself give, yes, but let yourself be filled too. Let yourself stop. Let yourself receive, because you weren't meant to be ocean for everyone else's thirst while dying of drought. You were meant to be watered, tenderly, regularly, without asking twice. And that, dear Cancer moon, is the most intimate kind of giving, the kind you give to yourself first. Intimacy of sensate with moon in Cancer, when you soak in every feeling around you, but forget you have a body too. With the moon in Cancer, your emotional world is saturated. You don't just feel your feelings, you absorb everyone else's too. You walk into a room and know what's off before anyone speaks. You hear emotion beneath the surface of someone's words. You feel love not just in gestures, but in the tone of someone's silence. Your world is shaped by sensory cues, mood, voice, vibration, warmth, but the intimacy of sensate asks for something more grounded than empathy, embodiment, and that's where your moon drifts out to sea. You process life emotionally, not physically. When someone touches your arm, you don't just feel skin, you feel intention, history, safety, or the absence of it. When someone cooks for you, it's not about taste, it's about whether the food carries care. You're always reading beneath the surface. You experience the emotional temperature of sensory moments. But you don't always inhabit your senses directly. You interpret through feeling, not through presence. This means that even when you're loved well, you can feel adrift. You remember the feeling of the kiss, but not its texture. You know the embrace was meaningful, but you don't recall how it felt to be held. Your mind stores the emotional memory, but your body often gets bypassed, left out of the experience like a witness standing just outside the door. You are sensitive to tone. An offhand comment can linger for days. You are moved by scent. One whiff of their sweater can unspool years of longing. You are undone by music. But when asked, what do you want to feel? Not emotionally, but physically, you hesitate. You've spent so long tuning into others that your own sensory language has gone quiet. This creates a disconnection. You crave touch, scent, closeness, but you wait for others to initiate. You don't want to ask. You want it to arrive naturally, intuitively, because you want to be felt without having to explain. But others are not always tuned to your frequencies, and when they miss the moment, you feel misunderstood, sometimes even unloved. You don't realize your silence, your withdrawal, your yearning, they're not legible without expression. And this is what the intimacy of sensate invites you to reclaim, your right to ask to be felt. You also tend to romanticize the past more than you engage with the present. You'll remember the way someone once looked at you with such softness, how the light fell across their cheek, but in the moment now, you forget to reach out and touch their face. Your memories are drenched in feeling, but your present often stays dry. You carry nostalgia like a second skin, but hesitate to fully enter the sensations in front of you. To grow in this intimacy, you must bring your emotional sensitivity into your body. Let yourself taste your food, not just remember who cooked it. Let your bare feet feel the cold floor, not just long for the warmth of company. Let the candlelight soften your jaw, not just your mood. Let love into your senses, not just your memories, and let your partner know what awakens you. The music that moves you, the pressure that grounds you, the pace of breath that calms you. Your Cancer moon thrives in attunement, but you must give others the map. Not just wait for them to guess it. Because when you begin to receive sensation without over-translating it, when you let the warm blanket be a blanket, not just a metaphor for safety, you return home to your own body. You start living your sensitivity from the inside out, not just through the emotional echoes of others. This is what your moon most needs: to feel without drowning, to sense without absorbing, to let beauty land without turning it into a story. Because not every moment must be remembered. Some are meant to be lived, in the now, in the skin, in the heartbeat of a life you're finally in, not just dreaming of. And when you do that, intimacy becomes something more than nostalgia. It becomes embodiment. And your love becomes more than memory. It becomes touchable, real, here.